this for this next little bit, I'm going to read something that's not in the book. This is going to be in a book that'll hopefully be out sometime early next year. From it's a collection of short stories and novellas, and there's a cycle of 4 stories in here that are kind of autobiographical, called Jack's Girlfriends. There's actually a few violent deaths that happen that are fictional from my rich fantasy life, but there's a lot of stuff in these stories that are true. This one happened to me. The protagonist is called Jack, which is stand-in for me, but all the other people in the stories also had their names changed. Anyway, I was about 18 when this happened, and the time's compressed, and anyway, the story's called Sherry's Payback, and this is about in the middle of the story. Jack had a date with Janelle for a movie at the drive-in the next night, and they decided to still go even though it was raining. A couple of years before, Janelle had been one of his best friends right around the time he'd first started driving. She'd been living with foster parents then, and she didn't go to the Catholic all-girls school, so Jack couldn't remember how he had met her. But her foster parents lived near Poly High in an upscale middle-class neighborhood. They were extremely nice, respectful of Janelle's privacy, and always left the two of them alone when he visited. Jack and Janelle never got to the boyfriend-girlfriend stage, though they occasionally made out. Janelle had straight, long black hair, pale white skin, thin lips, and mascara always heavily applied around her big moon eyes. She was at least a quarter American Indian. Jack wasn't sure what tribe, and she was also a little flaky, having dropped acid numerous times. But she had a kind of wistful, sad charm about her that Jack found attractive. They had a strange, easygoing bond that was intuitive and mysterious. She had just started living with her real parents again in the boondocks of West Riverside, not too far from the drive-in. He'd never met them, but he knew they were bad news. Jack thought it was a bad idea that she'd returned home, but he kept his mouth shut. The house was a run-down cracker box. There were a few scraggly patches of grass for a front lawn, strewn with broken toys belonging to her younger brother. The place gave Jack the willies as soon as he approached the front door. Janelle answered the bell and let him in. "I can't leave just yet," she rolled her eyes. "They want to meet you." "Great," he whispered sarcastically. "Can't wait." She led him first into the kitchen on the right, a hellishly tiny, harshly lit room where her shriveled-up mother gazed coldly at him as she hovered over something indefinable frying on the stovetop. "Mom, this is Jack." She nodded curtly and went back to staring at the frying pan. Jack knew she was a devout Jehovah's Witness who enjoyed beating Janelle with belts and brushes. Janelle took his hand, giving it a quick squeeze as if to say, "Steel yourself," then pulled him down a narrow hall to a rear den illuminated by a black and white TV. The room had hardly any furniture. A giant pot-bellied bear of a man with a crew cut, dressed in shirt sleeves and dungarees, grinned at Jack from a rocking chair. Jack glanced at the TV and saw Porter Wagner introducing a stoned-looking Jack Palance to his country western studio audience. "So you're the one taking out my little girl tonight, huh?" He stood up, towering over Jack. He rubbed his left hand through the gray fuzz on his perspiring, close-cropped head, and with his right hefted a can of Ham's beer to his lips, taking a large gulp. Yes, sir." The man laughed and stared hard at a blushing Janelle. "This boy's got manners. You hear that girl? He called me sir." He shuffled closer, leaning forward and down, bringing his face mere inches from Jack's. "Where you taking my little girl tonight?" "The drive-in movie." "The drive-in movie, huh? They do all kinds of things at those drive-in movies besides watch the movies." "That's what I hear anyway." He guffawed, elbowing Jack in the shoulder. Janelle was grimacing, turned halfways away, watching Jack Palance mutilate a country song at low volume. Jack was 5'11", but her father stood a good 4 inches taller and was a foot wider. His breath smelled like a cross between a brewery and a sewer. Jack tried not to show he was breaking out in a cold sweat. "You gonna get yourself a piece tonight?" Jack played dumb. A piece of what?" "That's a good one. You know, a piece." No, I don't think I know what you mean." His laugh faded and his shit-eating grin grew smaller. He finished his beer and waved them off. "Go on, get out of here." Janelle and Jack started into the hall. Jack nearly jumped as her father's huge paw grasped his shoulder. The burly boozer bent close to Jack's ear and whispered, "Don't do anything I wouldn't do." He hee-hawed a braying laugh as Jack faintly nodded. The two left the house, trotting through the rain in the muddy, curbless street. Janelle said nothing, even after they were inside the car. The drive-in was about 5 minutes away, and about halfway there, Janelle whispered, "Sorry about him." "You don't have to apologize. It's so embarrassing. He's scary." She said nothing for a minute, then finally, "Yeah. Are you safe there, the way he is?" She turned in her seat to look at Jack, her straight black hair dripping from the rain. "We'll see." Jack steered them into the line at the drive-in. There were only a couple of cars ahead of them at the drive-through box office. She reached out and squeezed his hand. "Let's not talk about him tonight. I really don't want to talk about my family at all." He nodded to her as he handed the attendant the money. They pulled into the lot, the rain pouring down now in sheets. Since they were in the station wagon and wanted to lie down in the back with the rear seat folded flat, he put the car in reverse and backed into their spot. Once they were comfortably settled with a couple of blankets and he had hooked the speaker through the passenger window, he cracked the window on the rear pull-down gate so the glass wouldn't fog. It was a British picture about witch hunting at the time of Cromwell, starring Vincent Price. The American distributor had changed the title to The Conqueror Worm, referencing an obscure poem by Edgar Allan Poe. Though it had been a good 10 years since the first Price Poe effort, House of Usher, the company was still obsessed with wringing every last box office dime they could out of the ever more tenuous Poe connection. Janelle and Jack snuggled for a bit, frequently making out and only sporadically watching what was happening on the screen through the bleary rivulets of water. Suddenly the horrific images, Price's character ordering his flunkies to set fire to several crucified witches, registered with Janelle. The next thing Jack knew, she was flailing against him, screaming, trying to get out of the car. She yanked herself away, kicked open the back gate, and plunged stumbling into the deluge. He leapt out after her, grabbing onto her arm about 10 feet behind the car as she slipped to her knees. He pulled her up and enfolded her in his embrace. Both of them were sopping wet. I'm burning, I can't watch." "What are you talking about?" She refused to look at him. "I'm burning. Janelle." He shook her. She wouldn't meet his eyes, just moaned, with her face averted towards the dark, overcast sky of falling rain, her eyes tightly shut. At his wit's end, he slapped her. That sobered her a bit, and she lowered her voice, looking at him. He told her to get in the car. People from the surrounding vehicles were rolling down their windows to stare. Janelle did as she was told and sheepishly crawled under the open back gate of the car. He followed and pulled it closed. She refused to look at the screen and threw herself, sobbing, into his arms. "What made you do that?" At first she wouldn't answer. "Come on, Janelle, what the fuck? Tell me what made you go crazy like that." She raised her face from where she had been nuzzling against the wet shirt plastered to his chest. "I'm a witch." "What?" "My friend